All right, 7th graders, we're going to be going through the entire chapter and getting ready for a test later this week. So we're going to be going through and doing the chapter review. Let's take a look at the first page. Let's open up our notes for the chapter. Make sure that you have all the notes for the chapter, okay? So we started in this chapter talking about what a variable is, what an expression is, okay? And then going through and looking at how to use the textbook. This is important because you can take a practice test in your textbook. If you go to the chapter book test, there's a web code for the chapter test that you can take. And so you can take that as a practice test to see how you're doing, and then it'll score it for you, and you can use that to study for your test. You can also use the textbook videos, and you can take lesson quizzes. Okay? So we went through and writing expressions. We talked about what those expressions mean. We went through the order of operations and reviewed those steps for solving expressions with lots of different operations in them. And we talked about evaluating, meaning that you have to substitute a number in for a variable. Whenever you substitute the number in, make sure that you put it in parentheses, okay? And that way it'll help you to do the right operation. So always put it in parentheses when substituting. It's really important to do that, especially when there's a negative sign, or if you're substituting in a negative number. All right? For example, what if you were substituting in a number like this? 5 minus n equals, well, let's just do this, 5 minus n. And n is negative 12. What would you do with this? What's the answer to this? Asa?
5 plus 12.
Yeah, it's 5 plus 12 because 5 minus parentheses negative 12 is 5 plus 12. But if you didn't use parentheses, or if you already saw this minus sign, you might think of this as just being 5 minus 12. And you'll miss one of the negative signs. Okay? So that's why it's really important to remember to substitute using the parentheses around it. Okay? What about this? What if you don't use parentheses around this? How would you write this?
If you don't use parentheses, you just put like 3 minus 7.
3 minus 7. Is that 3 minus 7? No,
No,
it's 3
times
negative 7. So it's really critical to use parentheses because that's what is your times table, okay? Let's go back to our notes. So evaluating expressions. Then one of the things that you might have to do is use information on a chart or use information from a situation and then write the expression. And so it's important that you try to figure out the pattern using a chart. Okay? And always look at how do you get from one side to the other side? Right? How do you get from one side of the chart to the other side? You have to add something, or subtract something, or multiply or divide. Okay? And we talked about those. Integers and absolute value. Remember, absolute value is the distance that a number is from 0. It's the number of spaces that it is from 0. And so the absolute value is always a positive number. The absolute value of negative 3 is 3. The absolute value of 75 is 75. And then you might have to use that number and then add it or subtract it or multiply it or divide it. Now opposites are not absolute value. Opposites are positive and negative. So opposites, the opposite of 5 is negative 5. The opposite of 20 is negative 20, and so on. How about rules for adding positive and negative numbers? If they have the same sign, you combine them. So if they are both negative, it becomes more negative. Okay? If they're both positive, obviously it stays positive. Then we went through some examples. For subtracting, you need to put a plus sign into the negative, into the subtraction equation. So you make it plus negative, like this. 3 minus 5 becomes 3 plus negative 5. Or, if it's minus minus, you change it to just plus. Minus minus equals plus. And that is the same, and that holds true when you are multiplying and dividing also. Oops, too far. There we go. Multiplying and dividing. Minus minus equals plus. So, negative 5 times negative 5 is positive 25. Or, if you have an odd number of negatives, then it's negative. So a negative times a positive is a negative, and so on. And then finally, the coordinate plane and graphing points. And you always have to remember that you go right or left first, and then up or down. The x-coordinate is the right or left coordinate, and the y-coordinate is the up or down coordinate. And then the quadrants are 1, 2, 3, and 4 in Roman numerals. If the number or the point lands on a line, then it's not in a quadrant, then it's on one of the axes. Right? Any questions so far? Alright, so that's what we talked about this chapter. So as you go through the chapter, and as you go through the chapter review, remember this is a graded assignment, make sure that you look back in your notes. You should have your notes open and be looking back in your notes to make sure that you get these right. Okay? Alright. That's chapter 1.
Bye!